So we need to know about that because, you know, you're going to see that kind of stuff. This one's called bank loan fraud. I'm just going to take my time here a little bit till some people show up. Shows there's 4 viewers right now. But
Rods of God missed their first target because it looked like to me there was a fire going on and then something else ignited.
Right.
So did they miss their target the first time they shot them?
You know, I have no idea. There was something going on before, you're right. Yeah. And the nuke got set off, but it's come out that was a mini nuke and a tactical nuke that went off.
When that happened.
Sorry?
Too, and that was my first thought. It was a mini nuke because of the way the explosion happened, but I haven't seen these camera angles.
Yeah, and it was like those angles are like all like 2 or 3 miles away, and it didn't take long for that blast to get there.
Right. I mean,
you know,
thank God you went under the wall.
You got time to take cover, and that's about it.
Do y'all want to hear a short story about the nuke thing?
Go ahead.
Okay, so back in '91, I had a nightmare. I'm a screenwriter, so I actually kind of like nightmares. They kind of inspire me. This one was the first one that ever actually scared me. And it scared me to the depth of the core of my soul that I've never, ever encountered before. Never had it since. I dreamed that I was standing in a driveway in LA, because I worked in the movie industry out there, worked for Spielberg and Lucas's original crew, worked on many blockbusters as special effects tech. And I dreamed that I was standing in a driveway talking to somebody who lived in this house. And the driveway came up and around, and it was on a hilltop. The cityscape of downtown LA was off to my left. And as I'm talking to him, I knew in the back of my mind tensions were high. And I turned to my left just in time to see a big flash over the city. And I knew that was a nuke, and I dove down to the ground because there was a planter with bricks about this high. And I was going to hide behind those bricks, hoping it would shield me from some of the radiation. And as I hit the ground, I woke up in that depth of horror. And I tried to go back to sleep to dream the rest of it, which I do. But I saw a lot of created a lot of other angles and stuff. One was what you mentioned about one of the scenes that I created was a man walking down the sidewalk next to a building with his briefcase, and he's vaporized, and it's a negative shadow actually. So it's around his image is the burning of the wall, but where his image was there, that's not implanted. It's the shadow of that. So therefore, it's white. It's not black. It's on the impression of him. So as he's walking in stride, we see an X-ray of him walking, and then he's vaporized. So that's why I mentioned that. But I started writing that as a screenplay, and I did an outline, a treatment for it. And one of my closest friends in LA, y'all remember My Three Sons, I'm sure. Chip, the middle son, he's the youngest son, but then he became the middle son. He's one of my closest friends out there. And I was telling him about it, and I showed him the treatment, and when I was done, he was like, holy shit. And about that time, my brother had come out here, my older brother, and we went to see Terminator 2 together. Now, I had done some work on Terminator 2, the opening sequence with some friends that, two guys that created this Tesla coil, which we worked for Spielberg using this Tesla coil in Back to the Future 3. Anyway, we did some lightning effects for the sphere in Terminator 2 where Schwarzenegger travels in time and appears. That sphere, all the lightning that's shooting around the truck, and it takes out the corner of the truck trailer. We did that, and so I went there to see it with my brother, and that's the only thing I did. We went to see it, and when there's that scene, and where Sarah Connor is dreaming that she's at the baseball field and she's trying to warn her younger self with a child. You know, she's saying, "Wake up, wake up." That was almost identical to my dream in the sense that the city was in the flash and the explosion. So that was in '91 that I had that dream.
A couple years ago, I had a client that she lived by the military base there in Fort Worth. She had a dream one night that there was Chinese and Russian troops and others with blue helmets in her neighborhood. And it shook her so bad, she retired, sold her house. She's moved down to a gated community in Mexico where there's other expats down there.
Yeah, and on that move thing, that was actually what drove me to move back to Texas away from LA, because that actually truly scared me, and I thought, okay, if we're going to survive this, we need to be away from where big targets.
Yeah.
All big cities are going to be big
Right.
targets. Ports
Well,
are gonna be big targets. Military bases, all that are going to be the first targets.
They're going to be, yeah, that's right. I don't know that Dallas is really a big target. New York certainly is. LA certainly is. Houston, I would say Houston is, it's hard to say. It's more of a target than Dallas is, that's for sure.
Well, I agree with that because we're not a big military presence here, but there's so much money controlled and asset controls out of Dallas.
Right.
That does the world. So it won't be the primary target.
Carswell.
The Carswell, I'm not even sure about that. 'Cause it's-
Carswell was a fighter base. Now it is a joint reserve base, but before it was a fighter base.
It's way more
they're-
than that.
They're a training facility now.
They manufacture F-35
Yeah.
Joint Strike Fighters there.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. We do have a lot of our military equipment manufacturers here for jets, helicopters. We've got
Right.
Hughes and Northrop and all those. We've got those here, so that makes us a target.
So anyways, it's all stuff we need to be aware of. We are at war. You have to understand that we are at war. We were attacked with a biological warfare agent in 2020, and we are at war. And so we need to treat it that way. And we never tell the enemy what we're going to do, that kind of thing. And so anyways, I'm going to go ahead and move ahead with this presentation. This one is called Bank Loan Fraud. Let me test. Okay, so we got this. Okay, so this one's called Bank Loan Fraud. To have a proper foundation for this video, this is a live stream on YouTube right now. This should be watched after watching. Right, just wanted to verify we're live. Other videos that are related to this is Bankster Thieves 1, 2, and 3, Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments, Bar Members 1, 2, and 3. Actually, there's 8 of them now. De facto governments, we're under martial law rule, quasi-contracts in Roman civil law, and peace officers and law enforcement officers. So first of all, I'm not a liar. Well, I'm in a lawyer. No, I'm in a liar. You should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research. I have provided references to aid you in your research, but I don't know everything. I'm open to any ideas. There's 4 types of people you're going to meet in your life. There's the people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. Which one are you? Do you really know for sure? Are you who you think you are? If you can see through the illusion, then you are the solution. If the people don't know their basic rights and freedoms, how can they know when or if their rights and freedoms are being infringed? And I see this every day. people that don't assert their rights, people that give up their rights. You know, we're at war. You got to understand. We were talking about that before. We're at war. If they're talking to you, you're the enemy, and you have to treat it that way. And they're the enemy by definition. Okay, we're under military occupation. We're at war, and have been for decades, actually. Never forget the men who started this country were marijuana growing, whiskey drinking, taxi evading rebels who left their beds at night to shoot the cops. You think about it, that's exactly what went on. Matter of fact, I've got some videos about the militias based on a book written by Edwin Vieira. Edwin Vieira. And in there he says that, well, he doesn't say it, but I'd certainly implied, and I think it's true. I think the militias started the War of Independence. I think that they were going out and they saw this kind of shit going on. They'd be going out and hunting down these chiefs of police and putting one through their eyeballs. You know what I mean? And engaging the pigs. And everybody was required to be armed. You know, you had to, if you came to a public meeting without your arms, you got a fine. And if you were outside your town more than 2 miles and you didn't have your arms, you got a fine. And that money went to support the militia. And so, you know, I wish we had that kind of stuff going on today, you know. Anyways, all tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex. I don't trust the military industrial complex. I don't trust the mainstream media. I don't trust the bankster criminal cabal that owns the government, owns the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex, owns the military industrial complex, and owns the mainstream media. If you call me a conspiracy theorist, I don't trust you. Government is not reason, it's not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. And right now they think they're master. So there's a 40-page document published by the Chicago Federal Reserve in the 1960s called Modern Money Mechanics. And we're going to talk about that at the beginning of this and go through what that says. So there's the front page of the book. And if you see the red arrows pointing at Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. So this is taken from their own literature by Dorothy M. Nichols in May 1961. Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, Modern Money Mechanics. So this is page 3. We're going to go in closer to see what it says. 3 or 2. Here it is. And we'll actually look at the text. It says the money creation process takes place principally through transaction accounts. That's Modern Money Mechanics, page 2. And then this is page 6, I think. We're going to see the text closer. Page 6, yep. So then on page 6 it says, of course, they do not really pay out loans from the money they receive as deposits. If they did this, no additional money would be created. What they do when they make loans is to accept promissory notes in exchange for credits to the borrower's transaction accounts. So think about what they're saying here. So when you sign that promissory note, they deposit it into a transaction account and then loan you that money out of that account. When they make loans is to accept promissory notes in exchange for credits to the borrower's transaction account. And it gets better. It's actually, this is 12 U.S.C. section 83, says no national bank shall make any loan or discount on the security of the shares of its own capital stock. Well, when you make a deposit under the Uniform Commercial Code, it becomes the bank's property. That's why it's called a bail-in. When they go and the bank goes bankrupt, It's an unsecured debt to the bank. You're like the last of the creditors in the list of creditors to that bank. And so we're going to talk about
Unsecured.
it's an unsecured loan. Exactly. Did you check that bank's credit rating before you gave them an unsecured loan? Anybody do that? Deposit insurance is a pool of fake money for bank failures. The savings and loan failures in the 90s. I put this here because I actually met some people that had lost $60,000 in one of those savings and loans, and it was insured, and it had been months and they still hadn't got their $60,000. Okay, so just because it's FDIC insured doesn't mean you'll see anything. And if a whole bunch of banks go down, there's not enough money in that pool, and and that's when the bail-in comes in. Unsecured creditors are the lowest priority creditors. Unsecured creditors get stock in the new company. That's what happens when they go bankrupt. The creditors get stock in the company. So you become the owners. That's what happens. Think about it. 1933, the U.S. went bankrupt. So what happened? The creditors became the owners. That's why we have pirates out here. They're thieves, because thieves took control of the government because we were asleep at the wheel. We and our ancestors were asleep at the wheel. Don't get me going. You're going to get me going here.
Keep going.
Anyways, what?
The Parker brothers actually told us in the Monopoly game,
Yeah, right.
it says the bank never goes broke. If the bank runs out of money, the banker issues IOU for whatever amount required by writing the amount on a piece of paper.
There you go. So my book, Trump, A True American Patriot or Not, is available. Mike Blackwell actually asked me to write the book. He called me a couple minutes ago. He hired a company. It actually, he asked me to write the book. It took me about 6 weeks to write the book because all I did is I took a lawsuit and manipulated it and turned it into the book. So it's 99% provable facts. I use court cases, law dictionary definitions, international treaties, all sorts of stuff like that to prove everything I say in there. So, but there are some opinion, and I do say it's my opinion when there is an opinion, but it's 99% provable facts. So he hired a company to help us publish this book, and they wrote the back here, and I think they kind of nailed it. And what it says is, in Trump, A True American Patriot or Not, Glenn Fern and Mike Blackwell reveal the depths of corruption, deceit, and manipulation infesting our political system for hundreds of years, regardless of political affiliation. Read the hard evidence that exposes how our elected officials sold Americans into slavery. Understand the Founding Fathers' true intent when they formed our Republican form of government. Discover the influence of the satanic Roman cult on our politicians and political system. Does Donald Trump want to transfer power back to we the people? In Trump, you will see the great battle that is upon us. And I think they kind of nailed it there. Anyways, you can order the book from Amazon. The prices are going up, unfortunately, but everything's going up. It's $45 plus shipping. I prefer you order it from my website. I've got some in my car if you want to buy one today. Amazon.com does not provide autographed books. If you want it autographed, you got to order it from my website. Do you want to know the origins of the deep state? Who's behind it? It's in the book. Do you want to know why it's called the Trump administration? There's nothing in the government is by accident. Do you want to know what an administration is? You want to know how Trump came to be president? He was invited. I don't know if you know that or not. How many people know that Trump was invited to become president? There's actually a YouTube video with Jerome Corsi. I don't know how many people know or heard of Jerome Corsi. He's a guy that lives up in the Northeast. He's got a PhD in political science from Harvard, written a bunch of books. Anyways, he's got a YouTube channel, website. Anyways, there's a YouTube video where he says that in 2015, 5 generals came to see him, and they said they were going to overthrow Obama. And he said, well, you can do that if you want, but you might want to go talk to Donald Trump first. 3 months later, he gets a phone call. They decided not to overthrow Obama because Donald Trump had agreed to run for president. So my opinion, okay, this is one of my opinions in the book. My opinion is that the entire Trump administration is a giant military psyop. And I think it's continuing. And there's a lot of reason to believe that it is. Anyways, the military has their own way of doing things. They don't want control. They want to wake people up so that we take back control. And I think they're doing a great job of that, let me tell you. But anyway, so do you want to know who owns Congress? You know, why do you think Pelosi would get up there and say, we can't read this bill until after we pass it? She's taking orders from the owners, from the creditors that became the owners. You want to know why they're called law enforcement officers? They're enforcing the martial law. You want to know how you have become a slave? You know, I sued the IRS and took it to the Supreme Court. And that was the issue I brought up. I said, this is slavery. You're forcing me to work for you for nothing. And they never disputed a word of it. And now, IRS, they don't ask me, I don't tell. So don't ask, don't tell. And so I haven't filed anything since 2007, and they don't ask. They know if they do ask what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell them, send them a letter telling them 10 reasons, or a 10-page letter telling them why I'm not required to file. And so they don't ask. They already know the answer. The only thing they can do is try and steal my property. And you know, it's kind of interesting because when I was suing them, I was working for U.S. Airways. IRS, what happened was they sent me a request to file. And I sent them back a 10-page letter saying why I'm not required to file. So they sent to U.S. Airways a letter telling U.S. Airways I was filing exempt with U.S. Airways. They sent a letter telling them to change my withholdings to 0 exemptions, and they started taking out maximum withholdings. So, you know, my attitude is if you're not going to pay me, I'm not going to work. So I left U.S. Airways. And that's when I came to Texas, and some friends set me up with a trust and an LLC, and that's how I've been working ever since. Although I haven't had a contract since 2015. And right here, I am preparing a original action that I'm going to bring to the U.S. Supreme Court. That means that it won't be an appeal. It'll be an original action under Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2. The Supreme Court has original jurisdiction over all cases involving ambassadors and consuls. And I'm going to sue the U.S. consulate in Calgary. And so the Supreme Court's original jurisdiction on it, and I'm going to, So anyways, so I'm preparing that right here. So we'll see what happens. It's a crapshoot. They conspired with foreign enemies to sell me into slavery. They engaged in war crimes. Conspired with foreign enemies to engage in war crimes. Anyways, so under the Five Eyes Alliance, there's a whole bunch of stuff that went on. I had the last job in 2015. I was working for GKN Aerospace in Montgomery, Alabama. And I worked there for 6 weeks, and they laid me off. And when they laid me off, they told me that it had nothing to do with my work performance, but their corporate had ordered it. And GKN Aerospace is it's a UK company. Okay, that's one of the Five Eyes Alliance companies. Okay, corporations. So again, that ties in the Five Eyes Alliance. You see what I'm saying? Anyways, so so it's we'll see what happens. That's all I can say. It's a crapshoot at the best of times. These courts are not interested in justice. It's nothing more than a commercial transaction. They're part of the problem. Anyways, fortunately, Trump appointed some pretty good judges, I think, and so we'll see. You just never know what's going to happen. I'm going to bring up some issues that are going to be a big problem, I guarantee you. Anyways, do you want to know what the root cause of the War of Independence was? It's in the book. Do you want to know why every president goes to visit the Pope on their first international trip? Did you ever notice that? Did you ever notice that? The president always goes on their first international trip. They always stop at the Vatican.
Because you gotta visit him.
Well, that's,
Because the Vatican owns the U.S. and the U.K.
it's in the book. There you go. They do. Yep. It's actually District of Columbia. And that's why, think about it, Trump is brilliant. Why do you think after the election got stolen, D.C. was under a military occupation, right? Remember all those National Guard troops were in D.C.? Remember that? There's a reason for that, I guarantee you. That's why I say, I think it's a giant military psyop. I think that he's playing them like a finely tuned instrument, and they're playing along and open mouth insert foot. You know what I mean?
That's why the military all turned their back on Biden when he went by in their motorcade.
There you go. Yeah, no joke. Yep. So I already told you about Mike Blackwell and Jerome Corsi and the 95% provable facts. Howard Hughes. I don't know how many of you remember Howard Hughes. That's actually kind of related to David Wilcock. I always thought that Howard Hughes, the reason he was hiding out is because, in my opinion, this is part of my opinion, is all of these billionaires, when they get to be billionaires, and Trump's a billionaire, all of these billionaires, when they get to be billionaires, they get approached by the New World Order crowd, and they get told, you're going to go along with our program or you're going to turn up dead. And I think that Trump was approached. I think Howard Hughes was approached. Matter of fact, there's actually a David Wilcock video. I guess maybe Howard Hughes might not have been approached, but he kind of figured it out. Because Howard Hughes got blackballed after the end of World War II. He couldn't get into defense contracts. And so he got some young ladies to go and sleep with the military-industrial complex types and find out from pillow talk what they were up to. And that's when he found out that they were planning on doing what they want to have wars and pandemics and kill off 90% of us and wind up with them in control. And so Howard Hughes had manuals and procedures on how to do it. And Kennedy was actually implementing that stuff. Remember, Kennedy circulated $6 billion worth of U.S. Treasury notes. That's like telling the bankster thieves, you're done. You're finished here. and so they killed Kennedy, they killed his brother, they killed a bunch of other people. And the military saw this, I guarantee you. There's white hats, there's a Cliff Hite calls it a self-organizing collective. And I like to think that I may be part of it. It's just basically people that are fighting the battle in their own way as much as they can. You know what I mean? Anyways, Trump, there was a helicopter crash in 1984. And Trump, it was 3 of Trump's executives got killed. And he was supposed to have been on that flight, and he canceled out at the last minute. Now, I happen to know a little bit about helicopters. I started working on helicopters as a mechanic in 1976. And so I know a little bit about helicopters. And I know why helicopters crash. I've seen helicopters crash. Well, not I've seen them crash. I've seen what's left of them when they do crash. So I've seen several helicopter crashes. Anyways, the helicopters, I've never heard of this helicopter crash because the blades came off. I've never heard of a helicopter crash because the blades came off. They don't do that. That's right. They might crash because what happens is they have a tail rotor drive shaft and the bearing seize up, and so then the tail rotor drive shaft quits working and the helicopter starts spinning and they'll auger in. And the pilots, they plan for that. They go into auto rotation, but sometimes once that thing starts spinning, it's really tough. And if they're not very high, then they're in a bad way. Because it takes time for the auto rotation to kick in and catch the helicopter. But and there's things that are designed into helicopters to prevent that, or to like, for example, on all the tail rotor drive shaft bearings. And that was, as a mechanic, we're supposed to check that. Okay, there's paint on those bearings, and if it's discolored, the bearings get too hot, you got to replace the bearing. And so that was as a mechanic, that's one of the things we were supposed to check. And what they do is, when the helicopter is moving forward, they have the vertical fin on the tail boom offset by 5.5 degrees, so that it counteracts with the torque, so they don't need the tail rotor when they're moving forward. And so a lot of times, I've flown a helicopter. I've been up front, and the pilot will say, "Hey, you want to take control?" Sure. You have control. Oh yeah, get a feel for it. Move that thing around. And so I play with it a little bit, But so, anyways, yeah, I've flown a helicopter. Landing helicopters is probably the hardest thing, and it depends on the kind of rotor head they've got, because some rotor heads are very forgiving. But that's not the topic of this presentation today. We're talking about Donald Trump. And so, anyways, in reality, they're not after me. They're after you. I'm just in the way. And I think he's right. So an unconditional promise to pay is itself money. You have to understand that. Here's some court cases that talk about it. A cashier's check differs in that it is a bill of exchange drawn by the bank upon itself and is accepted by the act of issuance. A cashier's check is the primary obligation of the remitting bank. And that's Hathaway versus Delaware County. And then this other one, that by reason of the particular character of cashier's checks and their general use of the commercial world, they were to be regarded substantially as the money which they represented. Cashier's check is money. When you make a promissory note, that is money. And we're going to talk about that. But before we talk about that, we're going to talk about Unidroit. Unidroit stands for the Unification of Private Law, which is law merchant, and the website says that 63 countries have adopted it. It's designed to be automatically implemented. In other words, Unidroit will make a change to the codes. They'll do it over there in Unidroit's actually located 100 yards from the Holy See in Rome. So they'll make a change over there, and then all the codes in those 63 countries are automatically changed. So the U.S. has no control, and the Texas Business and Commerce Code, Texas has no control over the Texas Business and Commerce Code. That all comes from Rome. And so Unidroit's part of the Hague Convention on Private International Law. So private international law has to do with contracts under international law. Canada and the United States have been signatories to the Unidroit Treaty for over 30 years. Unidroit website says it's designed to be automatically implemented. Unidroit makes a change. All the signatories of the treaty are required to make the same changes. So this is actually from their website, and it's showing some of the things that they cover. We're going to get a little closer. Commercial contracts, cultural property, franchising. And again, this is taken from their website. The top line is the header for the website. Leasing, security interest, transport, banking law, capital markets, okay, anything on Wall Street, that's all governed by Unidroit. Private international law. Banking law, capital markets, civil liability, civil procedure, all these courts, all of them are governed by Unidroit. That's why you don't see any injustice in there. It's a commercial transaction. But if you bring that up, then they're gonna say you're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about. And anyways, don't get me going. Civil procedure, contracts, cultural property, franchising, hotel keepers, insurance, intellectual property, leasing, legal status of women, okay? The family courts are all governed by Unidroit. maintenance obligations, movement of persons, negotiable instruments. It's all negotiable instruments. A promissory note's a negotiable instruments. A Federal Reserve note's a negotiable instrument. All this stuff is negotiable instruments. This is the International Institute for the Unification of Private Law, and these are some treaties that are under their supervision. The 1955 Benelux Treaty on Compulsory Insurance Against Civil Liability in respect of motor vehicles. So why do you think they're forcing you to have insurance? Or at least they force persons to have insurance. It's all international law. That's why when the cops stop me, I tell them I'm a protected person under international law. Okay, because they're operating under international law. They're a bunch of thieves and pirates. It's warfare. Okay, warfare is by definition international law. You read the Libra Code, and one of the things about the Libra Code is nothing in the Libra Code has ever been repealed. Okay, the Libra Code is still in full force and effect. What they've done is they've added a bunch of stuff to it, and that's what all these Army training manuals are, stuff that's been added to the Libra Code. And I can show you the law of war. It's a book about that thick. I've got one in my car, the United States the Department of Defense Law of War Manual. And I've got one in my car, I can show it to you. And Unidroit, or I should say, the Libra Code is in there. I mean, it's listed as one of its sources of authority. The 1958 Convention concerning the recognition and enforcement of decisions relating to maintenance obligation towards children. Okay, that's the family courts. Okay, family courts is all international law. That's all DC. And so that's what you accuse them of, is violating Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. Okay, because they're bringing District of Columbia outside 10 miles square. That's what you accuse them of, because that's a problem for them. 1959 European Convention on Compulsory Insurance and that's another convention on compulsory insurance. The 1962 European Convention on Liability of Hotel Keepers. Okay, again, it says the hotels. And this is part of their membership. Okay, and it's showing I got Australia, got a star there. These are all the countries that are signed on to the Unidroit Treaty. Canada, China, Chile, U.S., United Kingdom. There's a bunch of South American countries. So we've all signed on to Unidroit. Now, the reason that's important is that when it comes to, remember, everything flows down from Rome. Okay? So a court case in Canada that's regarding anything related to banking would be effective here too. You could use it here too. And that's why I'm bringing that up, because this is a Canadian court case. This is Bank of Canada versus Bank of Montreal, 1978 Supreme Court reports. Okay, so that's Supreme Court of Canada. Can't get any better than that. Anyways, what is said to be an unconditional promise to pay a certain sum of money is itself money. The words on the face of the paper money will pay to the bearer on demand cannot alter its character as money and turn it into a different document which calls for the payment of money. You see that? So that is payment. It is itself money. You don't have to pay anything else. That's what they're saying. And you can use the Unidroit as evidence of why they have to accept that here, because it's regarding stuff that's covered by Unidroit. Anyways, my contact information, sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My blog, my website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo.com. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page, I deleted it due to censorship on the part of Facebook. My private group, Sovereignty International, on Facebook is being deleted. Quite frankly, I haven't been to Facebook in months. And I'm not going to remove myself, because if I did that, then Facebook would still be profiting from my hard work. That group has 17,000 members on it, and Facebook could be profiting from all the networking and stuff that goes on in that private group. So what I need to do is ban all 17,000 people off the group and then delete the group, and then Facebook won't be able to profit from it. But that is a lot of work. They make you go through about 5 steps just to ban one guy. And so my freelist.org private group is called Administrating Your Public Servants. My Google private group is called Administrating Your Public Servants. Follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. Howtube.com is my exclusive videos website. And I've also got a website or a channel on Rumble and on True Social and on X, formerly Twitter. It's Engineer Win. So what this is a chosen action, okay? It's a French thing. It's under Roman law. A chosen action is a proprietary right in personam, such as a debt owed by another person, a share in a joint stock company, or a claim for damages in tort, the right to bring an action to recover a debt, money, or thing, personal property. That's all falls under Roman law. That a person owns to another person possesses, the owner being able to regain possession through a lawsuit. That's Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. It's all Roman law. Civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases meaning the same system of jurisprudence, that rule of action, which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city has established peculiarly for itself, more properly called municipal law. Remember, they said that the unidroit has jurisdictional or civil procedure, okay? Civil anything, and so unidroit this is all covered under unidroit, municipal law, corporations, contracts. It's all international law. You got to understand that. It's all international law. To distinguish it from the law of nature and they're distinguishing it from international law, it's private international law. Okay, there's public international law and private international law. Public international law is treaties between nations, and it applies to the nations, or like for example, public international law would be the Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilians in a time of war of 1949, right? All of these nations have signed on to that. That would be considered public international law because they've all agreed to it. Or the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Those kinds of things are considered public international law. The law of war. The law of war is public international law, and it's basically how they do warfare. And so then all of these other things affect the law of war. Anyways, banks do not loan anything. The thing you need to understand is banks do not loan anything. There is no such thing as a bank loan in America or anywhere. When you sign the promissory note, you create the money. They deposit the promissory note into a transaction account, and based on that deposit, they cut a check. They're not out one penny when you get a so-called loan from the bank. Tom Shaw wrote a book called Banker's Secrets, and that lists 160 questions that you can ask a CPA and an officer of the bank in court to prove they loaned you nothing. Now, I can tell you, test. So I can tell you, I wonder if the batteries died on this thing. Anyways, I can tell you that I got sued over a $29,000 unsecured debt. Is a credit card debt, and this was back in the 90s. And so when you get sued, you get a demand letter from the lawyers, okay? And that was perfect, okay? When you get a demand letter from the lawyers, you got to understand that's like major opportunity. So what I did is I sent them back a letter by registered mail to the lawyers, and I said, sure, no problem, you can sue me, but I intend to prove in court that you didn't loan me anything. And I intend to get an officer of the bank and a CPA on the stand and ask them these 160 questions and prove you didn't loan me anything. And oh, by the way, if you want to have an officer of the bank sign this one-page affidavit saying they actually did loan me a depositor's money, I'll reconsider my position. Remember, under Title 12, they cannot loan you a depositor's money. That's a felony. Okay? So, anyways, I gave them an out. I said, if you want to have an officer of the bank perjure themselves, or not perjure themselves, admit to a felony, then I'll reconsider my position. 3 months later, I got a statement back on that account showing it had been paid off. I'm serious. And so the point being is that when the lawyers do it, it's perfect because lawyers are officers in the court. Okay? And if they would have sued me anyways, and that came out, I would have got them disbarred. I guarantee you. And so that's an abuse of the system. That's beartree. Now that's beartree is what it is. That'd get them disbarred. That'd probably get them in jail. So them sending me that demand letter was perfect. And I knew how to respond. Most people don't know how to respond. And the idea I got from a guy in Toronto, and he's an accountant, and he gave me that idea. I was living in Canada, and he gave me that idea, and I thought that's a great idea. Then it happened, and I figured, oh well, I guess I'll try Wally's idea. His name was Wally. But anyways, so and it worked great. Let me tell you, it worked great. So they don't loan you anything, and they can't. They cannot loan you anything. So, anyways, check out my other videos: Bankster Thieves playlist, Roman Cult playlist, Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments, Bar Members 1 through 8, Do-It-Yourself How Not to Volunteer for the Selective Service in the Draft, Martial Laws Here, Do-It-Yourself No Income Tax, Do-It-Yourself Free Mail, Do-It-Yourself Kangaroo Courts 1 through 28, Canada Border Pigs playlist, Bar Members and their Satanic Connections playlist. I'm just going to check my YouTube channel and see comments. Ooh, there's lots of comments. Good. Let's go and see if there's any questions that I need to answer. Holy cow, look at all these comments. Oh, I got 70 people on. Good. Well, there's way too many for me to go back and look at them and see if there's any recent ones. Yeah, gold and silver are the only lawful money. People are waking up every day. You got that right. It's about time. Okay, so there's nothing there that really needs to be answered. Okay, so keep going. Once a fraud, always a fraud. These are maxims of law. Things invalid from the beginning cannot be made valid by a subsequent act. The problem is that when you participate in a fraud, you can't claim fraud, okay? And so that's why you use their codes against them, okay? You can use their codes. There's codes in place. They still have procedures they have to follow, okay? So you can use their codes against them, but you can't claim fraud. Once a fraud, always a fraud. Things invalid from the beginning cannot be made valid by some subsequent act. A thing void in the beginning does not become valid by lapse of time. Time cannot render valid an act void in its origin. Out of fraud, no action arises, and any act by any government official to conceal a fraud becomes an act of fraud. It is fraud to conceal a fraud, and fraud and deceit should excuse no man. These are all maxims of law. And any fraud amounts to injustice. Fraud and justice never dwell together. What is otherwise good and just, if sought by force or fraud, becomes bad and unjust. The fictitious federal debt's a fraud. Think about that. When the government creates a bond, they create the money. All mortgages are a fraud. The so-called subprime crisis. Remember back in 2008, they said, oh, we got this subprime crisis. We got all these banks getting ready to fail. So we got to get, how much did they get? $700 billion from the Congress. So there's just a scam is all it was. Every dollar in circulation has to be loaned into circulation. The banksters are thieves. They are flat out thieves. There's actually, I did a video recently about fake money. And I go through about the history. And every president that was assassinated because he didn't want to go along with the banksters' programs. And there was some that died mysteriously that are a good reason to believe that the bankster is poisoned them or something. Anyways, U.S. Congress is bought and paid for by the bankster thieves. All so-called courts are bought and paid for by the bankster thieves. They operate exclusively under the Uniform Commercial Code, and once you understand that, you can use that to your advantage. This is all coming from the UN. That's why I do the Form 1020, right? The Form 1020 says, tell me what to pay. I want to pay it. And they'll never tell you. Only your lawyers can answer. They'll never tell you. And so it's an offer to pay. And so that's a problem for them. I have exclusive content available on howtube.com. It's $9.99 a month for the videos plus unlimited email consultations, but I'm not a liar. Well, I'm in a lawyer. No, I'm in a liar. But I can't tell you what I would do under certain circumstances and where to find the forums. The only power that these New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud, deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit. But I cannot fight all the battles. I need other people being on point. Some of my exclusive content that's on HowTube is an Arlington Private Information Share, Land Deed Training. I've got about 3 videos on that, 2 of them at least. Estoppel Certificates Training, Foreclosure Estoppel Certificates Training, Corporate Denial Training, Toll Roads Notice and Demand Training. You know, the Toll Roads Notice and Demand Training, I went and sent that to every member of the Board of Directors for the North Texas Toll Road Authority and the Harris County Toll Road Authority. And because I was down in Houston for a while and I was driving on their toll roads, after I sent that out, I never ever got anything back from in Houston. But here, they still sent me solicitations. So what I did then is I did the Form 1020 process with them. And with the Form 1020 process is a 3-step process. And I always invite their chief counsel. Okay, they're a liar. And so I did it with the North Texas Toll Road Authority. And what happened is you do the tell me what to pay, Form 1020, and then a notice of default. You failed to tell me what to pay, so I don't owe you anything, but I'll give you another 5 days to tell me what to pay. And then after 5 days, I don't owe you anything. You failed to respond. Anyways, and they still sent me solicitations. And then I had sent it to their chief counsel, okay? And I filed a bar grievance against their chief counsel, and everything stopped. So that worked good. And now I go on the toll roads all the time, and they never send me a bill. And you know, they're reading my plate, I guarantee you. And the reason I know is because Austin is a different toll road authority, but the same billing company. And they send me a bill when I go to Austin. So I know they're reading my plate. They just don't send me a bill. Anyways, so there's invoice training, notice of void judgment training, revocation of signature training, third-party witness training, federal habeas corpus training, revocation of voter registration, criminal complaint training. I got about 3 or 4 videos on that. Lawsuit training, I got 1 video. I need to do some more. Other training requests, I'm open to requests, but it's got to be something that is something I can do that I haven't already done. I've done a lot of stuff. I've got over 500 videos on YouTube. So I might have already done it. So you need to go to my website, because on my website, on the free videos page, is links to YouTube, free YouTube videos, and you can go there and you might find what you're looking for on there. Anyways, first views of all new uploads, all forms, files, and other instructions are available for free on my videos and on my website. So what happens is, if I like the PowerPoint presentation from this video, I'll link a PDF of this PowerPoint presentation in the show notes of this video. And sometimes I forget to do it, but somebody always is looking for it, and so then it reminds me. But the bottom line is that it's in the show notes. So if you're looking for a PowerPoint presentation, you want to get the citations or something like that, just download the PDF file. And don't contact me, ask me to share my stuff, because I do not share it. All I do is I send you a link and you download it, okay? There's nothing stopping you from downloading it. Then it's on your hard drive and you can do what you want with it. Anyways, all exclusive content will be on HowTube, and you can buy a subscription there. and it's Sovereignty International on HowTube. So the Federal Reserve Bank was created in the middle of the night on Christmas Eve of 1913. It took less than 20 years for them to bankrupt the country. And it's an established fact that the United States federal government's been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9, 1933, 48 Stat 1, Public Law 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt being bankrupt and insolvent. House Joint Resolution 192, 73rd Congress, in session June 5, 1933, joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolve the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States governmental officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. And that's Congressional Record, March 17, 1993, volume 33. So again, they still have an oath of office. Okay, that's our trump card. Trump card more ways than one, right? And pun intended. Anyways, within 20 years, this country is going to rule the world. Kings and emperors will soon pass away, and the democracy of the United States will take their place. When the United States rules the world, the Catholic Church will rule the world. And that's Roman Catholic Archbishop James E. Quigley, Arch 15th, that's Chicago Daily Tribune, May 5th, 1903. And so this is Congress. And you see the arrows pointing at the fascia. Okay, Congress is owned and operated by the Roman cult. They're Satanists, they're liars, they're thieves, and that's what owns Congress. And this is actually, sorry?
If you think about it, the fasces on either side of them, what's that the root word of?
Fascism?
Fascism.
That's not the root word.
Well, I mean, it kind of is.
It's another form of the word. Anyways, fascist. I mean, Anyways, this red text on here is hard to read, but this is Roman Conquest, 24th of September, 2015, when the pimp, I meant the Pope. No, I meant the pimp, came to visit. Matter of fact, there's friends of mine that are Catholic, and they don't like him either, and they call him Frank. So I like that. Anyways, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at what that text is. We'll start with this text over in the top left-hand corner, and what it says is Roman Achaea military staff carried in battle by all Roman commands, planted on all conquered nations. And so it's pointing right here at this Roman Achaea military staff right here. I don't know if you can see it up there. That's this military staff right here. And then the next one is devout Roman Catholic, honorary degree from Jesuit Scranton University. That's Biden right here, who was vice president at the time. And then Roman bundle of rods bound to a weapon symbolizing subservient under the rule of a single man. And this is the arrow is pointing at these fascists right here and right here. And that's this text right here. And then devout Roman Catholic, trained by Jesuits, installed the first Jesuit chaplain to the house. And so they had a Satanist as chaplain. And so that's Beaner, who was Speaker of the House at the time. And Boner, Beaner, whatever his name was. Anyways, so he was a Satanist, and he put a Satanist in as chaplain of all things. Anyways, so that's in 2015. They're making war on us. This is the same thing that precipitated the War of Independence. This is a court case from Chisholm versus Georgia, 1792. In doing this, I shall have occasion incidentally to evince how true it is the states and governments were made for man, and at the same time how true it is that his creatures and servants have first deceived, next vilified, and at last oppressed their master and maker. And so this is the Supreme Court saying that. And so, and that's exactly what's going on right now. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. Don't forget to like this video. On YouTube, don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. On Steemit, don't forget to go vote and make your comments. This is the front page of my channel. The subscribe button's already been clicked because otherwise it'd be red. The bell is not clicked, so you need to click the bell so you get notified of uploads. Federal Reserve notes or IOUs is found in the Bankster Thieves 1 and 2 video. Anything purchased with Federal Reserve notes is purchased on United States credit. Think about it. If you buy something on United States credit or the credit of any other corporation, who owns it? The corporation owns it. United States owns it. If United States is owned and operated by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, then the Bankster Thieves own it. Everything you purchase. That's why they're taxing you. They want their tribute. As used in this act, the term United States means government of the United States. The term currency of the United States means currency which is legal tender in the United States, which includes United States notes and Federal Reserve notes. So again, think about it. United States notes and Federal Reserve notes are legal tender in the government of the United States. Gold Reserve Act of 1934, 48 Stat 337. Mortgages are found in Roman law. Negotiable instrument law is a subset of Roman law. Federal Reserve notes, Bank of Canada notes, Bank of England notes are meant for internal use of the government only. By using a negotiable instrument to purchase things, the kangaroo courts presume you consent to martial law rule, as found in the We're Under Martial Law Rule video and the de facto courts video. Because you purchased everything with their private money system, Federal Reserve notes, Bank of Canada notes, Bank of England notes, technically the banksters own what you purchased. That's why the tax. By orchestrating a subprime crisis, the bankster thieves are just taking what they already own, technically. This is all made possible because of Roman law, the United Nations, the Vatican, and your ignorance. There is a distinction between a debt discharged and one paid. When discharged, the debt still exists, though divested of its character as a legal obligation during the operation of the discharge. You know, they lay awake at night dreaming this stuff up. A state like a merchant makes a contract. A dishonest state like a dishonest merchant willfully refuses to discharge it. That's why I say they're nothing but thieves and pirates. They're making war on you, and the sooner you figure that out, the better. And you have to treat it like warfare. Because you accept Federal Reserve notes, Bank of Canada notes, Bank of England notes as compensation for your labor, the kangaroo courts can presume that you're a government employee, as found in the de facto courts video. The United States has not had a treasury since 1921. The United States Department of the Treasury is now called the International Monetary Fund, found in Presidential Documents, Volume 29 through number 4, page 113, and 22 U.S. Code 285 to 288. And the International Monetary Fund is a subsidiary of the World Bank. The Department of Homeland Security and all its subsidiaries, TSA, FEMA, Customs, Immigration, is a subsidiary of the United States Secret Service. The United States Secret Service is a subsidiary of the Treasury Department. The Treasury Department is a subsidiary of the IMF. And the Internal Revenue Service is an agency of the International Monetary Fund, and you can look that up with the Diversified Metal Products versus IRS. And Public Law 94-564, Senate Report 94-1148, Reorganization Plan. That's all showing that the IRS is a subsidiary of the International Monetary Fund. The United States nations, through the International Monetary Fund, issues Social Security numbers. The Department of the Treasury issues the SS5, not the Social Security Administration. The new SS5 forms do not state who or what publishes them. The early SS5 forms say they are Department of Treasury forms. All Social Security checks come directly from the IMF and the UN. It says it on the front of the check. Isn't it amazing how all these terror alerts start coming out when there are funding bills before Congress? Fraud is an intentional perversion of the truth for the purpose of inducing another to reliance upon it, to part with some valuable thing, belonging to him, or to surrender a legal right. When one conveys a false impression by disclosure of some facts and the concealment of others, such concealment is in effect a false representation of what is disclosed as the whole truth. Suppression of a material fact in which a party is bound in good faith to disclose is equivalent to a false representation. Fraud and deceit may arise from silence where there is a duty to speak the truth, as well as from speaking an untruth. Fraud may be committed by a failure to speak when a duty of speaking is imposed, as much as speaking falsely. That's why that Form 1020 works so good, because they fail to respond. Where a relation of trust or confidence exists between two parties so that one places peculiar reliance and trustworthiness of another, the latter is under duty to make full and truthful disclosure of all material facts and is liable for misrepresentation or concealment. Concealing a material fact when there's no duty to disclose may be actionable fraud. You have your father the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there was no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he's a liar and the father of it. That's John 8:44. But the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers, which is pharmaceutical drug pushers, and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, the second death. Revelations 21:8. Everything they do is a fraud and a lie. The so-called courts are full of fraud and lies. If you do not participate in their fraud and lies, they'll deny you justice. The whole financial system is a fraud and a lie. The only true loan happens when it's not involving a corporation. In other words, if I loan someone, another man or woman, something, that's a loan. All corporations are a fraud and a lie. Equity. In the early history of the law, the sense affixed to this word was exceedingly vague and uncertain. This is owing in part to the fact that the chancellors of those days were either statesmen or ecclesiastics, perhaps not very scrupulous in the exercise of power. It was then asserted that equity was bounded by no certain limits or rules, and that it was alone controlled by conscience and natural justice. That's Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 1856 edition, quoting Blackstone's commentaries on the laws of England. Equity, court of equity. A court of equity is one which administers justice when there's no legal rights, or legal rights when courts of law do not afford a complete remedy, and where a complainant also has an equitable right. All of these martial law courts are courts of equity. Equity, the system of law or body of principles originating in the English Court of Chancery and superseding the common and statute law, together called law in the narrow sense. When the two conflict in appealing to the equity of the court, she's appealing to the king's conscience. And that's Black's Law Dictionary, 7th edition. In the meantime, civil law was the form of law which was largely, if not wholly, governed by martial law rule. Equity has always been understood to follow the law. To have superior equity is to turn things on their head. This is exactly what happens when martial law is imposed. If equity is the law, then it follows its own course rather than following the common law, thereby destroying the common law and leaving what is called equity in its place. And that's Judge H. Ellett in his book, The Non-Ratification of the 14th Amendment, associated with the case Diet versus Turner. So again, let's read that again, because that's exactly, these judges will tell you in these courts, I can do anything I want in here. That's because we're under martial law, and they don't have to follow common law, and it's a court of equity. In the meantime, civil law was the form of law imposed in the Roman Empire, which was largely, if not wholly, governed by martial law rule. Equity has always been understood to follow the law. That's talking about equity following common law. To have superior equity is to turn things on their head. This is exactly what happens when martial law is imposed. If equity is the law, then it follows its own course rather than following the common law, thereby destroying the common law and leaving what's called equity in its place. The principle that a party cannot seek equitable relief, this is talking about the clean hands doctrine. You have to have clean hands. That's why you cannot participate in the fraud. And if you do, then you cannot bring up law. Okay? If you're gonna participate in the fraud, then you cannot bring up law. You can bring up their codes. Okay? Their codes that are related to that. but you cannot bring up any common law issues, because otherwise they'll say you're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about, you're mixing law. Okay, you cannot do that. Clean hands doctrine. The principle that a party cannot seek equitable relief, assert an equitable defense that that party has violated an equitable principle, such as good faith. Such a party described as having unclean hands, for example, Section 8 of the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction Act, contains an unclean hands provision that prevents a court from exercising jurisdiction in a child custody suit in certain situations, as when one party has wrongfully removed a child from another state, has improperly retained custody of a child after visitation, or has wrongfully removed a child from a person with custody. With a clean hands doctrine evolved from the discretionary nature of equitable relief in English courts of equity, such as chancery. There's actually some courts of chancery in the U.S. too. Black's Law Dictionary. Laches, another equitable principle. Unreasonable delay in pursuing a right. Most states have statutes. In other words, if you have a civil suit and you don't pursue it within 2 years, then you waive your right to do so. Unreasonable delay in pursuing a right or claim, almost always an equitable one, in a way that prejudices the party against whom relief is sought. Prejudice, that's such a scam, because these fucking pigs assault you, and if you don't bring an action against them, you're prejudicing their rights. And they assaulted you, they perjured their oath. So that's why you have to go after them for the felonies. You just bring up the felonies. That's all I do, is just bring up the felonies, because there's no statute of limitations on any of that crap. The equitable doctrine in which a court denies relief to a claimant who is unreasonably delayed in asserting the claim when that delay has prejudiced the party against whom relief is sought. The doctrine of laches is an instance of the exercise of the reserved power of equity to withhold relief otherwise regularly given, where in the particular case the granting of such relief would be unfair or unjust. Well, that's bullshit, whether it's unfair or unjust. But they're a bunch of thieves. Yeah, don't get me going. You're going to get me going. Anyways, the only way you can hope to prevail against the bankster thieves is to go on the attack. If you defend after they have initiated a foreclosure, then you're in bad faith. Okay, unclean hands. You cannot. You have to sue them. Okay, if they start their foreclosure proceeding and you're late on your mortgage, then the only way you can try and get a remedy is to bring your mortgage up to date, and then you can sue them for the fraud. Okay, but you got to bring it up to date. If you're late, then the courts won't even look at it. When they initiate the foreclosure, you're in bad faith by not paying your extortion. The Form 1020 is perfect because it puts them into unclean hands. I use that all the time. I'm using it right now against Toyota, and I'm filing felony charges against them. And so we'll see what happens with that. We'll see, and then I'll file bar grievances against their attorneys. I'll bet you it might take the bar grievances to get them to discharge that loan, but we'll see. I've filed some felony criminal complaints already, and it doesn't seem to have had much effect, although you never know. You just don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Moreover, in the case of original mortgages and promissory notes, they are not merely exhibits but instruments, which must be surrendered prior to the issuance of a judgment. Okay, so the judgment takes place on the promissory note. Surrendering the note is essential so that it cannot thereafter be negotiated. So this is important. So when they issue a judgment in a foreclosure, then that note has to be surrendered. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around the banks will deprive the people of all the property until our children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. The issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. And how many people are homeless right now? If all bank loans were paid, no one would have a bank deposit. There would not be a dollar of currency or coin in circulation. This is a staggering thought. We are completely dependent on the commercial banks. Someone has to borrow every dollar we have into circulation, cash or credit. If the banks create ample synthetic money, we are prosperous. If not, we starve. We absolutely, without a permanent monetary system, when one gets a complete grasp upon the picture, the tragic absurdity of our hopeless position is almost incredible. But there it is. The banking problem, is the most important subject intelligent persons can investigate and reflect upon. It is so important that our present civilization may collapse unless it is widely understood and the defects remedied very soon. And that's Robert H. Hemphill, credit manager of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta for 8 years. The American Revolution was fought primarily over King George III's Currency Act. The refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system, which freed the ordinary man from the crutches of the money manipulators, was probably the prime cause of the revolution. There's two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by sword and the other by debt. The money powers prey upon the nation in times of peace and conspire against it in times of adversity. It is more despotic than monarchy, more insolent than autocracy, and more selfish than bureaucracy. It denounces its public enemies, all who question its methods or throw light upon its crimes. As a result of the war, corporations have been enthroned, an era of corruption in high places will follow, and the money powers of the country will endeavor to prolong its reign by working upon the prejudices of the people until wealth is aggregated in a few hands and the republic is destroyed. And I'm not a big Lincoln fan, but he there was some things that I liked that he did. That's for sure. All bank loans are a fraud. There are no bank loans. There is no federal debt. All foreclosures by banks are a fraud. The U.S. Congress is bought and paid for, owned and operated by the banksters. The banksters and their bought and paid for U.S. Congress are in the process of setting up a blood sacrifice to their satanic gods, World War III, and they will get American Satanists to help them. See Mark Passio's YouTube channel. When you turn up dead, the banksters get to pillage all the fake money in the Treasury Direct account at 31 CFR 363.6. A minor means an individual under the age of 18 years. The term minor is also referred to an individual who has attained the age of 18 years but has not yet taken control of the securities contained in his or her minor account. And then an entity means any owner of a Treasury Direct account that's not an individual. Entity is a sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation, limited liability company, professional limited liability company, trust, the estate of a decedent, or the estate of a living person, such as an incompetent or a minor. So they put you under the Commerce Clause is what they do, which is perjury of oath. And that's bringing Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, bringing the District of Columbia outside 10 Mile Square. The Hague Convention concerning the administration of the estates of deceased persons concluded 2nd of October 1973. Article 23, any person who's acquired assets of the estate from the holder of a certificate drawn up and where necessary recognized in accordance with this convention shall, unless it is proved that he acted in bad faith, be deemed to have acquired them from a person having power to dispose of them. The convention shall apply even if the deceased died before its entry into force. So that's kind of unusual having a retroactive, but that's international law. When injustice becomes law, resistance becomes duty. Is there any wonder Christ threw the bankster thieves of this day out of the temple? He even called them thieves. They are thieves. Object. So what can we do? Okay, and this is what I do. Object to the fake money. Okay, again, you cannot have a privilege. No privileges. Okay, if you have privileges, and we're going to talk about, let's see if I think I do talk about this. Yeah, right here. The rights of sovereignty extend to all persons and things not privileged that are within the territory. Okay, that's Carlisle versus United States. So use the Form 1020. Okay, that is Carrie Ullman's brainchild, and it is absolutely brilliant. And because it's an offer to pay. Tell me what to pay. I want to pay it. And they can never tell you. Only your lawyers can answer, and they'll never tell you. We can refuse to participate in their de facto system. We can use any other monetary system but Federal Reserve notes, Bank of Canada notes, Bank of England notes. use gold or silver coin, use cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies they're not a CBDC, okay? Don't use the damn CBDC, that's for sure. We can use qualified endorsements and all checks and negotiable instruments. I put for deposit, for credit on account, or in exchange for non-redeemable Federal Reserve notes at face value. And I really think that they're going to this ACH, this electronic transfers, because that way you can't do that anymore. I'm positive that's why they're doing that. And then another way of doing it is redeem for lawful money, 12 USC 411. That's another way people do it, and I think any kind of objection is good. That's an objection too. Anyways, copies of these documents, this is how I do it, okay? Copies of these documents can be found on my website and linked under my recent YouTube videos. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information, shares a DVD with over 100 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forums, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. And donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin. But as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the IOUs, the Federal Reserve notes, the forced loans, the securities, the cash app gifts, the checks, the money orders, etc. Send me an email for particulars. That's my objection. Okay, I'm objecting to it. I'll take it, but I'd rather have gold or silver coin. And so, I had a guy send me an email one time, taxman@gmail.com, and he wanted my price list, so I sent it to him, and I never heard back. But so I really think that's why they leave me alone. Bitcoin mining halved in April of 2024, last month. Okay, open a Bitcoin wallet at Coinbase, buy $100 worth of Bitcoin, and get $10 free Bitcoin at the link below. Bitcoin debit cards are available. I've got one in my wallet, and so if I have to, I don't like to spend my cryptocurrencies, but if I need the money, I'll use my Coinbase card, and it's like a debit card, and the money that I spend is Polygon, and so because that's how Coinbase has it set up. So I have some Polygon, and if I need to, like this meal that I bought today, I can pay for it with my Coinbase card. I'm not gonna, because I'm gonna use something else. But if I wanted to, I could use my Coinbase card, and I'd be spending Polygon. Bitcoin debit cards are available. Portable Bitcoin wallets are available. Exodus, Coinomi, Jax. Bitcoin ATMs are spreading all over. Okay, you do a Google search for Bitcoin ATMs, and they're all over the place. There's a Bitcoin ATM like 2 blocks from where I live right now that has 2 Bitcoin ATMs in it. Actually, there's a gas station, a Chevron station, that's got 2 of them in there. Anyways, so at the bottom line is be like the mouse and give the eagle a finger. But if the watchmen see the sword come and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, if the sword come and take any person from among them, he is taken in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at the watchman's hand. Either you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution. You're not a watchman. Circulate this video far and wide. If you find this useful, then you need to pay it forward. And if you don't know what pay it forward means, then watch the movie. And that's the end of this. I'm going to just check my YouTube channel and see if there's any questions. Probably is. Let's see. Lots of comments, that's for sure. There's 72 concurrent viewers right now. So looks like there's not really any questions. There's just lots of comments, and that's good. I'm glad people are finding it interesting. Does anybody have any questions that's online? Yep, I see you guys are on YouTube. Any questions here?
Why don't you have an assistant that's responding to your comments? You could probably get a lot more people.
Have what?
Assistant that's responding to the comments.
Oh, I could,
Shed administrator.
Volunteering?
could, yeah. I'd have to let them log into my YouTube channel.
I have to know more about what I'm talking about.
I'd have to let them log into my YouTube channel.
Okay, so Glenn, I have a question. If somebody was basically coming in this on the base floor and they really didn't know anything, not anything, but they didn't know about things the way you and many of the people in this room, what would be your approach to diving into this material as opposed to a fire hose? You understand what I'm saying?
Well, it can be like a fire hose. There's no doubt about it. So what do the Bible say? Line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. So I would do what the Bible says, just take what you can, think about it, and come out and learn more next time.
I have to tell you something, Glenn. So I did exactly that. I started reading the Constitution. I started reading about the militia, and the militia is listed in Article 1, Section 8. I forgot what other section it says that the purpose is to organize. So what I did was I went, is it the Bill of Rights? And I read, it was Article 1, Section 8, and it starts talking about the militia, and it says for the purpose of organizing, maintaining, developing, and then it talks about how it's very important to have one, and that it's outside of the 10 square thing. So that's exactly what you said. So, I would encourage anyone that's starting on this journey not to be overwhelmed, but to take it piece by piece. And even though we're being attacked in this war, in the Bible it talks about how God told them to still get married, to still have children, to still buy land. And why was he saying that? They were in captivity. He was saying that because he said, don't stop living. Even bless the people that you're in captive under. So I think it's so important that the joy of the Lord is our strength. And it's so important that we not get so overwhelmed with what is going wrong, but focus on what the problem is and tackle the problem, but do it with joy. And I was just saying to Francine that I'm really proud, Glenn, of the work that you do, and you're such an asset to all of this. And I land.
This whole room echoes what she just said. We love you, Glenn. We like to see you get going.
Thank you very much.
You had a comment?
Your kind thoughts are always appreciated.
He's got a comment.
Oh,
I was just coming as one of the watchmen.
there you go.
I've had a couple of conversations this weekend, and first of all, I want to congratulate Daniel on his new position. And there's a man that came, I think he's spoken here before, anyway, he came back through, he came through February and March and went down to the border to see what's going on. He just said it's an open civ, it's wide open, there's nothing in it. And then he came back through, he was in this area last week and went to Arizona from here. And on the way to Arizona, the blue helmets are here. He said they've increased their shopping and their uniforms in southern New Mexico. They feel comfortable enough to do that. So, and also we've had some research that's shown that Daddy Bush, DHW, signed a deal with the UN that when the dollar goes down, which could be any day now, the UN is supposed to come in and take over. They believe they're going to. So, and And the way we've got people reading it, something, section 22 is on the State Department's website, or code 22, she called it, but it looked at June 15th or June 30th was the date that I heard mentioned this morning, so time is short. The militia, I've got a committee of safety handbook. We have to have militia. We have to have common law court. We need to get them going as quick as possible and remove these lying liar banksters. You know, lawyers stand for lie. Will, yours is mine. We need to get rid of them. We gotta go. So I've got to go get my grandson. Francine?
Where did your friend say he saw?
He saw them in southern, southeastern New Mexico. As soon as they went out of El Paso on the I-10 going into New Mexico, they built like a FEMA type camp. They had other camps.
So they were on Mexico land,
New
or you?
Mexico, New Mexico. And they're probably in Texas also, although Texas seems to be
Did
dealing
he
with them a
say
little stronger.
1,000 or how many?
He just said there were a lot of them and that they looked like they were Middle Eastern, Syrian type. And but one of the things I've heard is they're training them to speak good English. They're going to dress like us. They're going to be wearing uniforms like our uniforms. We're not going to know who to defend ourselves against. All by design. Deception from the deceiver. So, well, you know, who you going to know to defend yourself from?
I think we should pray to end out the meeting.
Well, let's look at Glenn. His meeting.
Can we pray?
Okay, so,
Can we pray to end the meeting?
absolutely. Just, I want to answer a question on YouTube. Somebody had a question on YouTube. Somebody on YouTube was wondering about if they answer the Form 1020. The only way that they can properly answer a Form 1020 is their lawyer with the bar card has to answer it. Otherwise, it's not an answer. And don't let them. I've never had them respond at all. So, but if someone is answering it, they're feeding you a line of BS, and go back and tell them you need their bar card, and otherwise they're not a lawyer. It's a fraud. They're liars. You know, I wouldn't. I'd ask them if they know how to read. Anyways, it has to be a lawyer. Has to be a bar card, and we need that. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and end the stream. Thanks everybody for watching.
I've got a 1020 testimony.
Oh, okay.
I had a ticket for no registration out of Collin County to Justice of the Peace, and in this process, I sent it back to him. I didn't do it in a timely manner, but I, just kind of let it go.